Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Patriots History as we read through Patriots History of the United States. A reminder, I am reading from the 15th anniversary edition. If you have a much earlier edition, some of the headers will not be the same. None of the pages will be the same. You'll have to hunt and peck for where we are. We tried to keep the headers the same, but some of them we just had to change over time. Remember also, at the Wild World of History, if you scroll way down, you come to a box that says subscribe to the newsletter. Now, the subscription is free. Won't cost you anything, but excuse me a second. This is giving me problems. The subscription is free, but if you subscribe to it, we will send you the 20th anniversary edition of Patriots History, and that consists of a brand new chapter I wrote from 2018 to 2023. As well as about 20 pages of inserts. And last time you'll note that I read a few of those inserts in the Civil War chapter. Over 20 pages total, a lot of brand new research, new stuff. So it's definitely worth having. But again, you need the 15th anniversary edition for that to work well. Otherwise, the page numbers aren't going to line up. Even some of the lines that I referred to won't be there. So I urge you get the 15th anniversary edition in paperback, and then you can make use of the free 20th anniversary edition. Now, if you're an instructor, you don't have to be a homeschooler, it helps. But if you're an instructor, maybe you're teaching high school, maybe you're teaching a charter school, private school, check out my curriculum. Maybe you don't want to use the full curriculum in your class, but believe me, you would benefit from the 22 videos in Patriots History that I have that go along with all the chapters. I teach every chapter in video. If you're a homeschooler, this is your course. No license to expire. Use it with as many kids as you want, as you need to over time. And as I say, each unit comes with teacher's guides, study guides, tests and exams, answer keys, of course, and me teaching every unit in videos of 45 minutes to an hour each. So be sure to check that out. Now, it's political season. I mean, we just got to admit it. If you are into politics and you want more in-depth analysis, go over to the Wild World of Politics and sign up for my Insider. In addition to 6 video series, including the latest one, which is Patriots History of Globalism, Then and Now, which is complete, and my ongoing Churchill series, which is not complete. We've probably got another 7 or 8 chapters to go there. You will also get 3 times a week my political insider commentary, where I review everything from polling to voter registration to changes in the laws to developments in the courts, whatever it is. So sign up for that. It's only $6 a month. Believe me, we'll keep you posted. And then finally, this year, as I did in 2020, I will be hosting a live election night coverage called Decision 2024 USA. And I will be joined by Ash Epp and Seth Keschel, and the 3 of us will be handling all the returns as they come in. We make no early calls, but we certainly don't make any calls late, as some of the networks do. When it's time to call Georgia, we'll call Georgia. So we're looking forward to a great night. In 2020, we had over 800,000 viewers, and we did this on a 2-week preparation. And people were coming over to us, our stream from Fox and CNN, saying, man, you guys are better than those guys. So check us out. We will have a page up for you guys on Wild World of History, Wild World of Politics, and on my Twitter feed at Larry Swikart about Decision USA 2024. All right, let's get back to the reading here. We are on page 363, Lincoln's Last Days. In the 2 years since the Emancipation Proclamation, Maryland and Missouri had freed their slaves. The fugitive slave law was repealed, and Congress had passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which provided that, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the parties shall be duly convicted, shall exist in the United States at any place subject to their jurisdiction. With that amendment, Lincoln had steered the nation from a house divided over slavery to one reunited without it. Now he had two overarching goals ahead of him: ensure that the South did not reinstitute slavery in some mutated form, and at the same time bring the former rebels back into the Union as quickly and generously as possible. Again, you heard me last time say, I think that Lincoln was mistaken here. I think that his attempt to do this quickly and easily and mercifully was probably wrong, that he needed to ban the Democrat Party and just remove it as a institution of slavery, because it couldn't change. I mean, once you plant the tree grows up. Even if you cut it down, the tree's going to grow back same way. He laid the groundwork for this approach in his second inaugural when he said, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and all nations. This brings up kind of an interesting question, certainly about the Confederate monuments and statues. There's two ways to look at this. One is, well, why should we have a statue to somebody who was a traitor? I guess you could add, or criminal. Well, if that's the case, then we need to remove the statue of Pancho Villa down in Tucson, Arizona, and the statue of Karl Marx up there in, I think it's in Seattle or Portland. In other words, you would never be allowed to put up a politically incorrect statue or monument to anybody or anything. The problem with this is ideas change, attitudes change, okay? And most importantly, what these people represent is what they tell us about that point in history. Do we need everybody to be a hero in order to say, you know, that statue reminds me, we don't want to do that again? So I'm torn. The same thing with burying Confederate dead in Arlington. Were there Confederate heroes? Absolutely. Did they show what in normal circumstances would be patriotism above and beyond, you know, bravery above and beyond? Sure, many, many, many times. Should they be honored in the same place as those who didn't violate the Constitution and leave the Union? I think probably not. But these are very weighted discussions, and they aren't easily answered. And Robert E. Lee probably deserves a statue as much for what he did after the war as what he did during the war, when he went on to be a peacemaker and to head a university. So these are very difficult questions. I mean, look at Benedict Arnold. If Benedict Arnold, if the war had ended in 1777 or early 1778, Benedict Arnold would be one of the most revered and decorated heroes in American history. The guy did nothing but win battles with almost nothing. And yet he felt slighted by George Washington, and that and a few other things led him to turn traitor. So, you know, what a difference a year makes. Like I said, these are kind of heavy questions, and they're good debate questions with your kids. The president intended for Reconstruction to follow his, quote, 10% plan. By this definition, he recognized former Confederate states Tennessee, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Virginia as reconstituted in late 1864, even as Lee held out in Richmond. However, radicals refused to seat their delegations nor to allow those states to cast electoral votes in the November 1864 election. One thing is certain: Lincoln wanted a quick and magnanimous restoration of the Union, not the radicals' dream of a prostate and subjugated South, which I probably would have gone with the radicals. When it came to the traitorous Confederate leaders, Lincoln told his last cabinet secretaries on the day he was killed, enough lives have been sacrificed. So this kind of gets us to a discussion of, if President Trump wins in this November election, and if he comes in, what should be done to all those people who perpetrated the Russia hoax, who engaged in incredible violations of constitutional rights with the so-called J6 Patriot Day prisoners. What about the FBI, who violated their oaths of office and tried to stop him at every turn, or the CIA, who denied him important briefings, or the Joint Chiefs of Staff like Thoroughly Modern Milley, who were defying orders? My view is you cannot spend all 4 years in retribution. The American public doesn't want that, and they're not going to put up with it. But I think the American public does expect some justice, a sampling of some of these people, just to show that, hey, you're not going to get away with this again. Nobody can ever do this stuff again. And I think that absolutely must take shape. Now, the debate will be who, how much, and how long. Again, don't put me on those committees, because you know where I'd be. I'd kind of be on the radical end of those. On the matters of Black economic opportunity, Lincoln was less clear. No one knows what measures Lincoln would have adopted, but his rhetoric was always several steps behind his actions on matters of race. It is one of the tragedies of his death on April 15th, 1865, that Abraham Lincoln did not remain in office to direct Reconstruction, for surely he would have been a towering improvement over Andrew Johnson. However, I will say this: I think if Lincoln had lived, the muddiness and the dirt of Reconstruction and how hard it was to do that would have dimmed his light. I think he was assassinated right at the apex of his greatness and popularity. Not that he wouldn't have been great in Reconstruction, but just the nature of that was not going to be as easy as winning a war, which of course was incredibly hard. I get that. Tragedy befell the nation, doubly so because his murder by an arch-Confederate actor named John Wilkes Booth doused feelings of compassion and charity for all that some, if not most, Northerners had indeed considered extending to the South. The details of Lincoln's death had taken on mythic status, and rightly so, for aside from George Washington, no other president, not even Jefferson, had so changed the Union. On April 14th, all but a few Western Confederate armies had disarmed. Mary Lincoln noticed her normally morose husband in the cheeriest of moods. It was Good Friday, and Washington buzzed with the excitement that for the first time in 4 years, citizens could celebrate an evening without the apprehension of the next day's casualty lists. Along with two guests, Major Henry Rathbone and Clara Harris, the Lincolns attended Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater. Lincoln did not have his bodyguard, secret agent, Allan Pinkerton, with him. Pinkerton had left his employ sometime earlier to start a private detective agency. At 7 o'clock in the morning, with the carriage already waiting, the president's bodyguard at the White House, William Crook, was relieved 3 hours late by his replacement, John Parker. As always, Crook had said, "Good night, Mr. President." But that night, Crook recalled Lincoln replied, "Goodbye, Crook," instead of the usual "good night, Crook." The day before, he had told Crook he knew full well many people wanted him dead, and, quote, "If it is to be done, it is impossible to prevent it." After intermission, Parker left his post outside the president's box and went next door to a tavern for a drink. When Act 3 started, John Wilkes Booth entered the unguarded anteroom leading to the president's box and braced its door with a wooden plank, opened the door to Lincoln's box slightly, and aimed the .44 caliber single-shot Derringer. That's a big bullet. At the back of the president's head, then fired. In the ensuing struggle with Major Rathbone, Booth leaped over the railing where one of his boots snagged on the banner over the box. He fractured one of his legs as he hit the stage. "Sic semper tyrannis," he screamed at the stunned audience. "Thus it ever be to tyrants." Hopping out the door to his waiting horse, Booth escaped. Lincoln, carried unconscious to the nearby house, died 9 hours later on the same bed John Wilkes Booth had slept in a month prior. How's that for weirdness? At 1:30 in the morning, Secretary of War Edwin Stanton made a public statement in which he said, "It is not probable the president will live through the night. Now he belongs to the ages," said Stanton on Lincoln's death. A 44 ball through his head, he was dead. Booth, in one maniacal act of defiance, had done more to immortalize Lincoln than all the speeches he ever made or all the laws he signed. The man who only a half year earlier stood to lose the nomination of his own party, now rose, and rightfully so, to join the ranks of Washington and Jefferson in the American pavilion of political heroes. I am so sickened by these books like DiLorenzo that want to claim Lincoln was a tyrant. And these guys just, I would put them in with the Democrats, but that's just me. Booth worked with a group of conspirators who had hoped to knock out many more in Washington Republican leadership, including Andrew Johnson and William Seward that night. Seward was stabbed, but the wound was not fatal. The assassins fled to Port Royal, Virginia, where Booth was trapped in a barn that was set afire. He was shot by one of the Union cavalrymen who surrounded him. Other conspirators quickly rounded up were tried at a military tribunal. 3 men and 1 woman were hanged. 3 others received life prison terms. 1 went to jail for 6 years. Davis, still free at the time, came under immediate suspicion for authorizing the conspiracy, but he knew nothing of it. At 10 o'clock the following morning, Andrew Johnson was sworn in as President of the United States. Walt Whitman, who had worked in the Union's hospital service, penned, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," in homage to Lincoln. Had Lincoln survived, perhaps the wounds inflicted by the war itself could have healed in a less bellicose reconstruction. After all, only in America would a rebellion end with the most of the leaders excused and the rebellious state emerging without being obliterated. And think about that. Any other rebellion. Think of the Spartacus rebellion. They crucified 2,000 slaves on the Appian Way. Okay. Think of the rebellion by the Maccabees in Jerusalem. The Romans surrounded Jerusalem, starved them out, finally broke through the walls, killed almost everybody inside, and anybody who was still alive, they sent them to the far corners of the world and utterly flattened Jerusalem. Whatever damage the South suffered, it was severe. It pales in historical comparison to the fates of other failed rebellions. Indeed, modern history is littered with successful rebellions, China, Bangladesh, whose human cost and physical devastation exceeded that of the defeated confederacies. With Lincoln's death, the stream of tolerance and mercy vanished. The Union wanted revenge. The divisions that brought on the war mutated into new strains of sectional, political, and racial antagonisms. That's a good place to stop right there. And when we get to John F. Kennedy, much later in the course, we'll look at all of the similarities between Kennedy and Lincoln. All right, don't forget, if you need a curriculum, check out the Wild World of History. Don't forget, if you want more political insight, join the Insider on Wild World of Politics. I post my today's news every day, Monday through Friday, on the Wild World of Politics. And we will be doing live election coverage on election night this year. So look for that information coming soon. I'll see you later.